Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Yagara, Turrbal, Yukarabal, Jagera, and Yugambeh peoples as the traditional custodians of the land, water, and country we now call the City of Logan. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people, for they hold the memories, the tradition, the culture, and the hopes of all Indigenous Australians. I wanted to explore the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture within my city, from the areas where I was brought up to my current normal daily living. So I began to walk to seek out the perspective of the Indigenous First Peoples within Logan, the city on which I was raised and still living. My story begins in my childhood, where my very first encounter with Indigenous culture was my neighbours, as well as the school I attended. This is where my knowledge of Indigenous First Peoples began. However, although I was raised around the culture and the people, I realized that I knew very little about the Indigenous First Nations heritage. I was very curious to know what the First Peoples culture was like during my upbringing, so I took it upon myself to get in contact with my Indigenous high school teacher. I was left very surprised at the response. My whole high school life, I was unaware of the representations of the Indigenous First Peoples that was present in my environment. The school logo of the platypus, which represents the spiritual indigenous totem, also known as the Wajin. The Wajin was never hunted or eaten, but guided the people to the freshest water holes for drinking, as well as the yarning circle, which is used for people to gather and communicate. What I also found very interesting is when you enter the school grounds, there is a bridge that crosses over the main road. The bridge is named the Learning Link Bridge, which was named after Auntie Linda Links, as she was known for trying to bring cultures together, looking after children who were stolen and help them to achieve their dreams. I found this very encouraging as, like her, we need to make an effort to build bridges over the barriers between us so that we can truly understand each other and so that the invisible culture is made visible and the hidden history becomes shared to everyone. My journey then continued as I wandered the streets of Logan, where maps of tribes and traditional language group names and very little cultural indigenous representations are visible. But is it enough? Upon my travels, I realized that there were many English street names and nothing that represented the indigenous peoples or culture. Logan City itself was named after Captain Patrick Logan, the commandant of Moreton Bay Panel Settlement from 1826. I continued to search and I was left wondering, what is the hidden indigenous history in Logan and why is it invisible? The social injustice of indigenous people and the sad past that society tried to wipe out the whole race through brutal colonization, a lot of bloodshed, slavery, abuse of power, and indigenous peoples being forced to forget their culture and learn European ways. After reflection, I have come to realization of Australians who have no deep connections with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, which have lived in isolation and blissful ignorance to what actually happened here in Logan City. I have now grown very sensitive to truly understanding the Indigenous culture and making it visible and sharing the hidden story to everyone. I now travel around Logan with a very new perspective. I understand the value and acknowledgement of peoples, the hidden stories of the land we live on, the culture, and the people.